You touched me here. What did you see?
I saw a landscape.
Saw a landscape.
Spaces, caves, tunnels and oceans, undiscovered countries.
Chloe, welcome to the Awards Tour podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. First of all, congratulations. I saw you dancing through the airport to Rihanna. That was a pretty momentous moment. This is not your first time around. Obviously, incredible success with Nomadland, and all of your films, I think, are ones that hold to people's hearts. But what was your favorite moment from yesterday? Either talking with the cast, or maybe it was dancing in the airport. What was it?
So I was on a shoot until 4 a.m. So something I'm very excited about, but I can't say what it is. And then I have to catch a 7 a.m. flight to come to Sundance. Yeah. So the news came from my publicist who's traveling with me. So it was all very, I was very happy, but it's the kind of like, it's a little flowy.
You were half asleep.
Yes. So it's like a good dream,
Yeah, it's okay. You can call it a little bit of a trip. It's like literally
it
like
was a trip.
You know what I mean?
It was thankfully a good trip.
I would definitely say that. And listen, I think that your work in general sometimes feels that way. Like
feels
I
like
feel
a trip.
I feel like there's a lot of magic in it. I'm not even remotely joking when I say that. There is
I
a lot,
take it as a great compliment.
And I don't mean to be like insensitive when I say this, but when I describe your movies to people, I'm like, she's a witch, and she's brewing up these emotional moments that you don't know when they're going to hit you, but when they do, they're going to be so powerful. And so I love that your work sort of does that. But I'd be curious for you. I know you said that it's instinctual is what makes you say yes to a project. Is there some kind of like signal? Is it something that you feel? Is it something that it makes you want to do? Because it is instinctual, but there has to be something that confirms it for you. So what's the thing that confirms to say to you when you first heard about, like, say, Hamnet, okay, this feels right? Like, what is the signal?
I'm glad you mentioned the witch things, because I would like to set the record straight. Because what is... why we're so afraid of like witches or people, not just women, people who seem to have some kind of magic, it's actually because that magic, quote unquote, is within every single human being. And the reason why it's so scary is that someone comes into your life or in a situation and they're igniting a part of you that you have forgotten, or you're afraid of, that you have locked away a long time ago, or it's being locked away for you. And not only they make you remember that it's there, they might make you feel the pain that you have no access to it, or afraid that it's going to come out of you. So I totally understand any resistance to that, but it's important to remember that it's not that the witch has something you don't have and is doing something to you. They just somehow triggered your memory of something that's deep inside of you.
They've tapped into something that you don't want to tap into yet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so powerful. Girl, we're going to dive into all of this. No, this is why I say this. This is, there is a magic to it. Like, I stand by that when I try to explain it to people. But
so if you watch the film, right, and you're feeling something that you feel like, oh, I feel that this film is doing something to me I don't like. It's not that at all. It's that there's something inside of you is knocking from the underworld of yourself, like, hello,
We're going
Hello.
to dive into this. That's like my later question, and I've planned these out very specifically. So, like, we're going to dive
Okay.
into how some people, when you tap onto these emotions, they're not, you're saying resist it. They are sometimes rageful. They're not able to deal with
I
it, but
was
not
trying to
yet.
be, I was trying to be
You're
polite.
being political, but I'm going to get more to it. But we're going to get there in a second. I want to make sure, though, we start where you started, which is that pull, because I think that is also intangible. So what's your
Yeah.
confirmation that, hey,
Yeah.
this feels right, and what made you feel like Hamnet felt right?
I'm speaking in metaphors a lot because I think metaphors sometimes help people understand what the hell I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps me understand what the hell I'm feeling, and sometimes it's not logical. So I'm trying to think of a garden or a patch of woods, forest. It's the question you're asking could be translated to, how do I know which seed should be planted when to grow the most magical tree?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's so many seeds being dropped. There's so many, like, how do I know this is the tree that's going to be grown? So I can put some protections around this, right? So I can like build my house around this tree because I know in years this is the tree.
Yeah.
And that is not something you can truly plan because you're not the one doing the work. Nature is. And the job sometimes of a weather witch, for example, is just to be observing and keeping her body really fluid and be her intuition, her antennas really high, and be looking at the pattern of nature to identify when is the moment the soil is the most potent, and where is the angle of the sun every day. That is about trying to find some patterns and see, this is going to be. But in order to do that, there has to be a few things that has to happen. Because you say, how do I know? A few things has to happen. Something has to die. Season changes, right? Something has to die. And then decomposes. So that could be something in my life. It could be a layer of who I think I am as an artist. It could be various things. You feel like something is impermanent and is gone. And then there's a period where that emptiness, it could be you're done with the film, so now I don't know what to do next. That emptiness needs to winter. And I use that as a verb.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Now you need to compost everything, and then only in the compost nutrients can come back because you've exhausted the soil from your last creative energy, a journey. So that winter period to me is essential, and it takes skills, and that's the skill we don't teach in very much. It's like when you're between projects, and that period is not just continue producing more. No, this is where you tend the garden, and that garden is our body, and it's our psyche, right? It's our mind as well. We know how to tend this, but this and our intuition, all of that. So for me, there must be usually a period of that. It doesn't have to be months and years, but you need to feel like there is a tending, and then you start to feel that there, when the soil is so rich, you start to feel overwhelmed by so much, because then everything starts to, in the beginning of spring, everything starts to align. There's all the synchronicities. The right person will come at the right time. Suddenly a book will drop, you open the page, it's literally talking about something that you're researching. Like you start to feel in spring, everything start to, harmonize. Like, everything just going. And when you start to feel that energy, that's when I am even more like, I'm like journaling. I'm constantly go back reading my journal, finding some patterns. And then a bird will come and it will drop this seed, and that seed would land in the perfect patch of soil. And to me, when that happens, and that seed could be meeting someone, meeting an actor. It could be a conversation you have with your actress. It could be reading a book. right? Let's say you got sent 10 books, and at that moment you read this one book, and what you're feeling inside is like that when that right seed goes into the right soil, and when it starts to grow, the energy that is growing it is the entire fucking planet.
Wow.
And you feel that. And then you go, oh, maybe I'll do Hamnet. The moment you start to say, I'm growing the seed, the energy, oh my God, everything from externally, internally, and then you just, you will know. It's undeniable. You will know. And I mean, for a woman, I think, I never been giving birth before, but I hear that when you get pregnant, you feel this energy going. It's the same kind of feeling.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. I love that. Yeah.
It's almost impossible to stop it. And then you can decide, oh, I don't want it. I really can't do that. Right. And then you can do that. You let it go. But if you ask me, how would I know that's going to be the one? Because you do want the tree to be the most healthy, magical, and the one you need in that moment in your life. And there are other trees that could be grown. We can grow in the greenhouse. We can mass produce it. But there's something about growing with the energy of nature and the planet is solid.
I think that's why people feel like this film, even though it's talking about something or referencing a time, in the 1500s, it feels very much of now. And I think that's because you're, like said, aligning with that. Your 4 first features, you said this in your statement in Hamnet, and I read it this morning again, that you had people that were dealing with grief or loss of some kind. And you said this is sort of the culmination of that. Does that mean that you were like, did you feel like Hamnet closed that chapter for you? What was it about this film? Like, I think you're basically saying, I'm going to move away from this as an artist, or am I wrong? Is that what you were saying with Hamnet?
I think I will be making films about grief and loss for my entire career, if I still make films, because that is probably one of the most inevitable human experience we're going to have, and they come in different shapes and forms, so, and meaning like I'm going to have winter in my films, and because it's not because I want grief, it's because I want transformation, I want metamorphosis, right? We come here, I feel, is to continue transform. And it's like a butterfly going to the cocoon, and everything in nature is always transforming, it's moving. And and of course we're afraid of that. That's why we build really solid structures. But as storytellers, we're drawn to stories of love and loss because we want to remind ourselves of the impermanence. You can do that in a fantasy film, you can do that in a comedy.
Oh, yes, you can. I know especially that you can. We wouldn't be talking about Hamnet if we weren't talking about Jessie Buckley and just what she's able to do with that. That's a very intimate relationship between you and her as director and lead in this one. To that point of metamorphosis, we find Agnes in spring, in her youth, first touches of love. We find that hold root and find stability in the summer and like the joys of them as a family. And then we get to see sort of like the winter. When you were working with Jessie, what was the season that was the one that you were the most excited? What was the one that you were the most intimidated? What parts of this journey were you sort of like focusing in on early as like, okay, we've really got to establish this as a pair because it's going to build to this whole film?
We don't think like that just because we could be present.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it flows and you don't really know what each day is going to bring. But there is the beginning and the end always the hardest because I think for us, we both understood that this is not linear, at least for me. Like story is not linear, it's a circle. So the ending arrive back to the beginning. And so how you open a film for a character, who is she and who is her in relationship to the world, to him? How do we express that from performance, from the cinematic language? And then we go through the 4 seasons with her, and we have to feel metamorphosis and back to the beginning, the same kind of, just different part of the spiral. Actually, it's not a circle, it's a spiral. She arrived at different part of the spiral. That to me is hard, because if you don't set up the opening correctly, right? If you don't have that, then you're spiraling the wrong place. And then the sort of the momentum you need to build in order for that final metamorphosis to come through. Without metamorphosis, no catharsis. So I would say the scariest was probably when we got to the Globe Theater.
Yeah.
We're going to be like, is this container are we gonna transform within this space in these 10 days? Because if we don't have a film.
No pressure. Yeah. And that was towards the end. That was the other thing. Y'all put that at the very end too.
Yeah.
So like, joys
so I
of
would
you.
say like from the end of winter to spring, like that, in the Celtic tradition, in the Imbolc, the spring equinox, like that period is when you're going from death to rebirth. That's the toughest part.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how you give that little glimpse of spring at the final moment of the last scene.
Yeah.
You were one of the Oscars that you were nominated for was for adapted screenplay. Yeah. And I read the book, Hamnet, and I thought it in itself is a form of literary fan fiction, because we are imagining, we know the characters, we know the players, and we are imagining the in-between, shout out to my fanfic girlies. And I've said, because and there's some other directors I won't name because I don't know if they're as public with it as you are, which I love that you're as public with it about it, who are also fanfic writers. I actually think that is a superpower for adapting work because of how empathetically you have to approach it, and also how much protection you have to have it. Because I think, unfortunately, a lot of directors look at source material as a playground that they can then deconstruct, rather than a playground that kids play on. And so it needs to feel familiar to those people. I'd be curious if you feel that about how you approach adapting, because I think your history there, it's why you've invested in the studio. I just feel like it's made you, in my opinion, a better director for being a caretaker for IP.
Yeah, I think fan fiction is, I think that word is sometimes misunderstood. So when you're writing fan fiction, it's because at its purest form, it's because you're so in love with this character, and you have observed this character in every possible way. Depends whether it's a real human being. You can read fanfiction about a real human being, historical figure, a fictional figure. You're so interested and in love with this character that you want to build a world for them to continue their journey. I don't think, like, I feel like that's like a very human thing to do,
romantic even.
It's actually come out of deep love and for these characters, and wanted to have a connection with these characters as well. So I think because of that reason, if you come from fan fiction writing background, you would have had a lot of practice in respecting who these characters are, because the only reason you're doing it, not because your fan fiction is going to help you make money and make a living or whatever, is because you're only doing it because you love that character so much you don't want to live without them. You want them to continue in your life, and so of course you're going to respect who they are, and you're going to want them to be who they are, because they are who you fall in love with, not even necessarily the world they're from. Sometimes the world is a big part of it, and actually it is a big part of it. Actually, no, that's not true. The world is actually also a huge part of it, and sometimes you can write fan fiction, you can take the character out of the world.
Yeah.
And I've done that many times. But the world itself, I would say more than half of the fan fiction writers also loving the world so much, and they're also being deeply respectful to the world, because we were writing these things for hours and hours every day of our youth, and for no other reason but because of the love.
There
was no business industry around it. So because of that, it does make us, I think, good, like you said, caretakers of IP.
Yeah, and no matter what that is, whether it be a beloved story or something else. And then just for the messy side of me is because I think you're too busy to be seriously up in AO3 all the time right now, but I may be wrong. Maybe you're still prolific on there and we just don't know.
No, I don't have.
I didn't think you did. I didn't think you had time.
But I'm writing fan fiction in other ways, you know. I don't think it's different.
But if there was a piece of IP that has come out since you've sort of like hung up your helmet that you're like, man, I'd like a long weekend and the blank page to just play around with. Like, I would just love to hear you say right now, be like,
to tell you what it is.
Yeah, like, is there one that you would be like, I'm not playing in this, I'm not writing in this, I'm
but
not even
directing in this? Are you talking about, I mean, what time frame are you talking about? Are you talking about last year? Or last years?
Anytime. Just something where it's like, this is not
recent.
Something, anything that you
not like when I was a teenager, but recent. When I became a filmmaker.
Yeah. After you became too busy.
But recently, and I believe I even put on Instagram, when I saw Black Panther 2, I kind of wanted to read stories between Namor and Shuri.
Yes, there's a ton actually.
I have actually read some. And I'm planning on sending them to. I'm planning on sending them to Ryan.
That brings me to my next question.
For inspiration.
He's got another one coming. Namor is all up in them trailers. We can just leave it there.
I'm very excited. I don't think I will not send him that.
No, it's fine. That's fine. But I just love the idea that you would, because y'all's friendship, for a lot of people, they didn't know before you mentioned him in the Golden Globe speech. Like, that was kind of news for a lot of them. And I was like, no. We're not at the same location in Sundance, but both of us are at Sundance right now. And On the Mountain is where your friendship sort of began.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, because I don't want to go through every chapter of what was the first thing? Because there was a lot of filmmakers on that mountain that day, but what was the thing about Ryan that you saw back then that you were like, oh, this is my people?
By the way, the story I told on the stage about me teaching him make a fire, and I just want to also clarify, I completely failed in doing so. Okay. It's not like I'm some sage who knows how to make a fire. I kind of said, like, look, I've been to South Dakota. I know how to make a fire. I did not make it happen either. It was, I kind of look back at it. We had a good chat in Telluride when I was there with Hamnet last year. When I look back at it, I would say that we both have a part of ourselves that we're afraid of. A part of ourselves that is connected to something a lot older than us. That we how do I best put it? It's how I describe Paul Mescal. So when I met him, and Jessie in a way, like there's like a vibrating energy underneath that is hungry, like Steppenwolf. It's like it wants to come out and play, but the world is not a safe place. It wasn't, it hasn't been, and we're starting to find our way where it's safe for us to be seen. And I think instinctually I felt that way about Ryan. And it was really beautiful that after over a decade we could be at Telluride. He had just made Sinners and I made Hamnet, and we both look at each other and go, I think we're letting people see us more than any of the other films we've made. The part of us that is older and that is, primal.
I don't disagree. I think he said, and he put a quote out that you put out, that he said this was your first movie where he said he saw so much of you in it, which I think is saying a lot considering this.
That kind of primal connection again with a lineage, with the planet, with music, with storytelling. There's something
with the ancestors. I mean, literally, you can say, I know that's exactly what it is. I mean, Ryan talks about that in his scene about calling to the ancestors. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about this because when I talk to people about the last scene of Hamnet, I usually preview it to tell them why they need to see it in the theater. I said, because there's going to be a moment when you're watching that movie where you realize that the director knew in that moment exactly what you were going to be feeling, that you were going to be shocked by it, and that it was going to, if you were crying, you were going to like weep more. And if you weren't crying, this is going to be where the tears started flowing. And it's that communal moment when you realize if everyone in the theater is crying the same way everyone in that theater is crying, you were literally in a multi-format therapy session with an entire group of people across time and whatever. And so thank you for, again, crafting this magic. But it is not easy to craft that. I say to people, she knew that you would be crying right then. She knew that because there's moments in the scoring and there's moments in the way that you change the camera where I think you're saying, oh, I know people are going to be weeping right here. We need to let this linger for a second and then move the camera so that they can see Jessie's face. Because if we do it too early, they will be too emotional to see it. That is artistry, but it is also, like I say, witchcraft. How does that process go? And how long did it take to find that rhythm? Or was it just an instinctual thing that you felt through the edit room?
I think editing is so much intuitive work. And Fonzie and I have a very similar, people, if you put Fonzie and me on a dance floor, we'll probably be dancing in rhythm together. I think you can judge whether you get it right co-editor or not by dancing together. and when I say that, because there's an intuitive decision of how long you hold down a shot. And when do you cut to what sides? It's in moments like that, what you're talking about, when it's not dialogue driven, when sound and music are coming in, and it's what we're trying to do is to find the right container for the audience's emotions to feel safe, to be a part of. There was so much. I mean, that ending sequence, we tweaked to a frame at a time to cut out of her face, different frames, and then the sound design and the music. At what point does one string come a little high? It is so precisely designed, and that is not designed to make you cry. It's designed to create a sonic and visual experience that you feel like you're moved by something bigger than you.
Yeah.
Again, that's where Max's music comes in, right? When you're moved by something that's bigger than you, then you surrender. And that's why people cry. Not because, we somehow like trick them. It's because they have something inside of them. And that I call love. Yeah. They love so deeply. And when they feel that connection with something bigger, whether for them is that piece of music, or whether they can feel like they connected to this whole audience on screen, or Jessie's experience, or the people next to them, their own family, friends sitting next to them, or just the darkness of the room, you feel like this really strange feeling of something bigger is moving me. And that, even the design of, if you watch this in a Atmos theater, even the design of where every bit of the instrument comes from is designed for it to move you, the vibration. And that's when the heart gets cracked open. That's when love floods out. Those tears are not, those are tears of empathy and love.
I love that. Yeah. Last thing I will say, because you're right, it's not a manipulation, but what I would say is, it was so well done that it feels that way to a lot of people.
Well, the way I say that, if you were to use the word, like, you design something to evoke something,
yeah,
right? Or people call it manipulation. This is what we do as storytellers. In the old days, we are the temple workers, or like the people work around the shamans. The shamans are going to be channeling. We're the one facilitating the ceremony. The shamans are the actors. It's important for us to design the ceremony.
Yes.
The ceremonies are designed. Okay, we're going to start as the sun hits this moment. We're going to choose a day when there is a mild wind, right? And we're gonna, paint this cave wall this color, and we're going to make sure there's this fire come up at this time. At that time the drums are gonna come in, and then we're gonna make sure our actors physically in certain place, and then here's the birds. There's new birds coming in, and now we're gonna, the actor is gonna channel the voice of the birds. This is our job, is to design a ceremony to allow something bigger to come through, so our tribe can have an experience. Is in service of the tribe.
Love that. You have a busy day at Sundance. I don't want to take any more of your time. And I think to anyone who maybe can't deal with those emotions, I would encourage them to just watch it again, because again, the film is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for making it.
And if it gets too hard, just turn Rihanna's music on and dance your way out of the movie theater. It will be better, or in the car, not when you're driving, but
I dig it.